Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, two UKIP officials have resigned from the party over the row about the 1989 Hillsborough disaster. Last week, the UKIP leader and Stoke by-election candidate Paul Nuttall had to apologise after his website falsely stated that he had lost close friends in the tragedy. Mr Nuttall pinned the blame on a member of his staff, saying he hadn't been aware of the claim. The UKIP donor, Aaron Banks, decided to get involved too, tweeting that he was sick to death of hearing about Hillsborough. Our political correspondent Tom Bateman has the latest. Tom, yes, give us the latest details.
Well, what happened after this controversy, which of course happens while Mr Nuttall is a candidate in the Stoke-on-Central by-election, and then a raft of criticism for Mr Banks over the comments that you just read out there that he made on Twitter, was that two regional officials for UKIP in Liverpool and in Merseyside said they were going to resign because of all this. Now, they are Stuart Munkham, who is the branch chair in Liverpool, and Adam Hetherington, who is the chair in Merseyside. And they cited what they called the unprofessional and crass insensitivity of the comments and their handling by both those figures and of Mr Nuttall, in particular the handling of the comments, the events about what had happened on his website and having to apologise for that false claim on it. I think potentially why this is so damaging, though, is that Mr Nuttall had said that all of this was a smear by UKIP's political opponents, by people wishing to do them ill, particularly with by-elections upcoming. And yet here we have two people from Mr Nuttall's very home turf resigning. Now, UKIP this afternoon are trying to play this down, I think, at a national level, saying that they understand the pressures that were put locally on those two officials, and they say that they don't blame them for resigning.
There are going to be more resignations following this.
Well, certainly one UKIP source on Merseyside has suggested to us that there could be more resignations that follow. Certainly you might expect, if the chairman of a branch had gone, that others may follow in their wake. Of course, we'll have to wait and see. But I think the wider question here is about UKIP's leadership, particularly after the summer, where they appeared to lurch really from one crisis to the next, but appeared to get onto a bit of a steadier footing with the election of Paul Nuttall. I think a lot will depend now what happens locally. Of course, we'll also have by-elections later this week, and many people will read much into the fortunes of all political parties as we see the results of those. So it's going to be a pretty interesting few days, I think.
Right, but it will no doubt have an impact on Mr Nuttall's campaign in Stoke.
Well, of course, that's the big question for him, because that campaign continues, and we're just a few days away from Stoke-on-Trent, but also there is the by-election in Copeland where UKIP are standing as well. So I don't think this is just a particular issue about his candidacy there, but also about UKIP's fortunes elsewhere in the country, not just that by-election, but as we look further ahead.
Thank you very much. Paul Nuttall is, of course, standing in this week's by-election in Stoke, as we have been discussing, where Labour are defending a 5,000 majority over UKIP. Adam Fleming reports now from the campaign trail.
I caught up with the UKIP leader and their candidate in Stoke-on-Trent Central before he found himself on the ropes with his party over claims he made about the Hillsborough disaster.
People are fantastic. Unfortunately, I think many feel that they've been left behind by the political establishment. I think what they need is a national voice, someone who can stand up in the House of Commons and be listened to. And I believe I'm that man to put Stoke-on-Trent on the political map.
To make UKIP look opportunistic, the Labour candidate says things like this a lot.
I live just outside the city in a pit village called Silverdale. I've been here for 13 years. So my family out, so my daughter was born, and I consider myself to be very local.
Although he's had problems too, apologising for tweets deemed to be rude, sexist and insulting to supporters of Brexit. Sarah Olney of the Lib Dems won the last by-election in this parliament, and she spoke to us while their candidate was at work doing heart surgery.
Well, his major issue is just standing up for the NHS. We're not hearing that from the Tories. They want to make their cuts. We know that the NHS has been in crisis, particularly over the winter, and we just feel that Labour are not providing the opposition they need to be providing to this government right now.
while the Tories and the Greens are focusing on the economy.
And one of my key priorities is to create more opportunities for Stoke, more jobs, and not just more jobs, better skilled jobs, better paid jobs for local people.
The Green Party's campaign is about insecure employment. We want to get people better jobs in the area, and also about defending NHS.
The city, which is really more like a handful of villages joined together, has been rock solid safe for Labour for much of the last century, but has become increasingly less so over recent decades. A big majority voted to leave the EU, which is why UKIP are pretty confident.
This is also the home to the inventor of posh pots, Josiah Wedgwood, and much more my style, Robbie Williams. So let's play Name That Tune.
I don't know the answer to that. I know the tune in my head, but I don't know the words, I'm afraid. How does it go? I don't wanna see something like that. I can't sing either, I'm afraid. So
that was impressive.
Was it?
The answer is
I don't want to rock
DJ.
Yeah.
Seeing angels instead?
Close.
Loving angels instead. There you go.
Close, you got the angels. And then I go and spoil it all by saying something stupid.
Like I love you. Is it?
Yes, correct.
Wow, fantastic.
Got it right. So fill in the missing words. Let me
Entertain you.
right. Yay! That one was so easy.
If there's somebody calling me on, she's the one.
You can actually sing.
Who will sing while they're winning? Voters decide on Thursday.
Two senior officials have resigned from UKIP in Merseyside, claiming that senior party figures have shown crass insensitivity about the Hillsborough disaster. The party's leader, Paul Nuttall, has admitted that claims he'd lost close personal friends in the disaster were inaccurate. And party donor Aaron Banks later said that he was sick to death of hearing about Hillsborough. From Liverpool, our political correspondent Carol Walker sent this report.
Paul Nuttall had hoped to unite his party and take on Labour in its heartlands, but he suffered a serious setback with 2 resignations on his own home territory. UKIP's Merseyside chairman is one of those standing down.
Hi, Carol Walker from the BBC.
He told me Mr Nuttall should apologise for claims on his website that he lost personal friends in the Hillsborough disaster.
I'm not happy about it. But, you know, he should get his facts straight, really. But it's a judgment of error. He's put an error out there on the webpage. He's got to correct that. And what he should do is, he has apologised for it, but he should come to the City of Liverpool and say, listen, I'm sorry for that error.
But it was this tweet from UKIP donor Aaron Banks that was the final straw. Mr Banks said he was sick to death of hearing about Hillsborough.
I am not going to be serving a party. I can still serve the people of the city, which I do every day anyway, but I'm not going to serve UKIP if it's got Aaron Banks as a donor. Sorry, that is my argument.
UKIP's Liverpool chairman Stuart Moncombe has also resigned, saying this unprofessional approach and crass insensitivity from high-profile people closely within and without UKIP is upsetting and intolerable.
Paul Nuttall is well aware that Hillsborough remains a painful, sensitive issue here on Merseyside. Questions about his personal experience have dogged his bid for Parliament in the Stoke Central by-election. And the timing of these resignations, just as voters are preparing to go to the polls, could hardly be worse. This was Paul Nuttall last week. Neither he nor Aaron Banks would comment today. The UKIP leader said he was at Hillsborough, though he had not lost close friends.
There was a mistake on my website, which was put up by a press officer. I take full responsibility. It's now been taken down. I was there, I was at the game, I can prove I was at the game. Look, I thought I'd seen all those in politics. This just isn't scraping the barrel, this is digging beneath the barrel.
But Mr Nuttall's critics are warning he could face further resignations from his party. Carol Walker, BBC News, Liverpool.
2 senior UKIP officials have resigned, dealing a fresh blow to leader Paul Nuttall. To 2 officials, both from Merseyside, cited upsetting and intolerable comments made about the Hillsborough disaster as their reasons for quitting. Paul Nuttall had to apologise last week after a statement on his website falsely claimed that he lost close friends at Hillsborough. Our chief correspondent, Alex Thompson, in Liverpool. Alex.
Indeed, John, yes, the name Paul Nuttall, the UKIP boss, must now be added to the rather long list of people in public life who are perceived to have spoken falsely or have spoken falsely about Hillsborough. Now, the effects of that are nothing less than incendiary, not just in Liverpool, but more widely. But consider this. How could it be that a man like Paul Nuttall, who'd stood for election in Bootle 2005, 2010, 2015, who's from here, said nothing about Hillsborough and going to the match in all that time? How can it be that he now speaks out suddenly with such catastrophic consequences? Because tonight, make no doubt about it, UKIP is running for cover.
The Hillsborough storm swirling around the leader of a British political party will not die down. Paul Nuttall, UKIP boss, moved to tears at the party rally on Friday, says it was his press officer who said he'd lost close friends at the Hillsborough disaster when he hadn't, not him.
Tonight it's emerging Paul Nuttall has another big problem as regards Liverpool fans and Merseyside and the Hillsborough disaster, because he says in public that he was a survivor of the Leppings End catastrophe. But he's also said in public he wasn't in the Leppings Lane terrace at all. He was in the upper tier seats, a safe place, and in no sense a survivor of what happened at all.
In this letter to the Liverpool Echo, Mr Nuttall had once attacked Kelvin Mackenzie, the Sun editor, for writing things that were, quote, just made up nonsense. Yet the same letter opens by describing himself as a Leppings Lane survivor. Some of those in the seated upper tier at Hillsborough undoubtedly behaved heroically, saving genuine survivors from the pens below, but were not themselves survivors in any real sense. So fans who really did make it alive out of the horrors of the pens are baffled, mystified, angry.
Well, he's always been a bit of an oddball politically on Merseyside, and there's been a lot of people probably jumped on the bandwagon since we got some measure of justice with the inquest results.
Wanted to be part of it?
Yeah, he appears to be one of them. He's obviously got an agenda.
Others, like the Mayor of Liverpool, remain baffled by Mr Nuttall's silence down the years on the Hillsborough issue, despite political prominence on Merseyside.
He could have raised the issue not just in Parliament, the European Parliament, but he also could have raised it at any time in the city at many opportunities that have been available, and he's chose to remain silent, and now all of a sudden it's become something that he wants to talk about.
But Hillsborough is inflicting wider damage on UKIP long after the terrible events of that day. Millionaire UKIP donor Aaron Banks tweeted,
"I'm sick to death of hearing about it."
He then came back for afters, writing,
"Milking a tragedy forever is sick."
As candidate for mayor, I pledge...
That comment, along with Mr Nuttall's, were too much for Adam Hetherington, chairman of UKIP's regional Merseyside branch, and Stuart Monkham, chairman of Mr Nuttall's own branch on Merseyside, and both have resigned. This morning Mr Monkham was not at home. Neighbours said he may be in Stoke-on-Trent. Across town, yet more mystery on Mystery Close. Adam Hetherington also out.
Well, there's something of a pattern here. My colleagues checked the house of the other official. At this house, Mr Hetherington's house, he's not here either. Of course, none of these two officials have done anything wrong, as it were. They simply resigned because of the wider mess. But there's a pattern emerging. Two senior officials, neither of whom are at home, neither of whom are available on their mobile phones. And the party leader, well, exactly the same curious pattern.
So far, Mr Nuttall's response has been to do a Donald, blame the evil media.
But I do not apologise for what is a coordinated, cruel and almost evil smear campaign that has been directed towards me.
Others, not least Liverpool fans who really did survive the terracing at Hillsborough, will conclude the problem does not lie with the media at all.
Well, just perhaps to underline the fact of a party gone to ground, we did ask UKIP to comment. They didn't have any comment to give us.
I've been getting away with it all